Good morning, everybody. Stu Smith here, going live. Happy Monday. We are going to take some questions, give some answers over here on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. But before we do, I want to chat about a few things. And first of them is I wrote an article this morning, and it's called Recovery. Well, actually, I should actually give it its full name. Military training impacts physical performance. It's a study recently done, and I found this on Nick Behringer's Instagram page. And by the way, if you're interested in the science of, it looks like I froze over here on Instagram for some reason. If you guys can't see me or hear me over there, sorry. But anyway, check this out. I'm going to share this screen here. If you don't follow Nick, you should, because he's just, that solid of a guy. He's okay. Good. Oh, good. I'm glad you can see me. Um, Army, retired, lieutenant colonel, PhD, nutrition, dietitian, Ranger school. And he puts out these studies, or more of like his synopsis of studies that are very helpful. Um, and you guys can see them here. And I put a link to his page, but I basically just wrote an article on his synopsis of a recent study, Military Training Impacts Performance. And he breaks it down to a ability to understand it very easily. You don't have to be a PhD to understand the science behind these studies. I will be honest with you. I still do, but I probably get most of my studies that I find on PubMed. You just do searches and you can find things that are relevant to what you do. But he is kind of breaking down and selecting tactical fitness primarily, but it's all over the place, from weight loss and common drugs and information. Um, it's just very, very helpful. So, wrote this article here. Basically, says if you have a military training exercise where you're sleep deprived, let's say you're working 18-hour days, 20-hour days, some maybe pulling all nighters. Sometimes that happens in military training, and it should. It helps you build resilience. You're eating MREs or maybe even missing one a day, and you're just not getting the calories you need. Those two hand in hand just put you into a overtraining, overstressed mode, under recovery mode. All are synonymous with each other. And you see weaknesses. And what this study did, it just broke down the exact weaknesses. And his synopsis says you had 11% decline in lower body power. You had a 5 to 6% decline in upper body endurance exercises like calisthenics. So the study breaks down some stuff. But I mean, if you've ever done a few all nighters, done some military training that tested you a bit, when you get back in the gym, you're not 100%. I mean, but it just broke it down to exactly how bad you are, and kind of helps you understand, you need a few recovery days after doing that type of stuff. And what's a recovery day look like? It could be like a mobility day. It could be a day off. It could be just getting a good meal and going to sleep and catching up on some sleep. That's probably going to put you in a quicker growth pattern to get back to where you were before you spent a week or 2 weeks out in the field. So, but the good news is it's all short term. Like, it's not a long term thing. It can be a long term thing if you don't do anything to help yourself recover. And let's say as soon as you get home, you go out and you're at Buffalo Wild Wings pounding pitchers and eating wings till 2 in the morning, and you wonder why you feel like crap the next day. You're not fully recovered. You didn't really sleep because you're hammered. When you drink, you don't really get restorative sleep. Did you know that? You'll sleep, but it's not restorative. Means you're not recovering from whatever your day gave you. You're just postponing your ability to recover. Now, when you're young, does it matter that much? It does, but can you get away with it? Yeah. When you're older, you definitely can't get away with it. I will be first person to tell you that. It's tough. So anyway, he breaks all this stuff down, and it's really good. You can see how he makes these little infographics that breaks it down, gives you key takeaways. I mean, it's just really good stuff. So if you haven't seen Nick's Instagram page, go check it out. Highly recommend it. It is it's very useful. Useful for me because, whenever I'm getting a little writer's block and I say, what am I going to write about? Let me see what Nick's posted. There's always some scientific study about something that he finds and breaks it down nicely. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I can do something like that. And I did. It'll be up on military.com later today. And I tagged him in it and, quoted him in it as well. So he got credit for giving me that idea. Somebody asked, how do you join my in-person workout? So you guys over on Instagram probably see my daily posts where we're swimming or running or doing calisthenics and lifting. Today happened to be a leg lift day. Yeah, if you go to heroesoftomorrow.org, you will see our schedule. And my only rule really is you have to be preparing to serve in some fashion. And we have military folks, we have law enforcement, we have firefighters, we have FBI agents trying out for SWAT team, active police officers trying out for their SWAT team, all types. So as long as you're preparing to serve your country or community, it's a free program. So now, have we ever had too many people? Yes. And it gets to be kind of a pain in the neck when you have to wait around for a deadlift bar or something. But I usually juggle it pretty well and just basically make you run more while people are deadlifting, you're running, and then while you're deadlifting, they're running and things like that. But it's pretty fun. Looks like I am not getting any comments over here on. There we go. Let's see if this works. Not getting any comments over on YouTube. Okay. Let's see if that works. All right, Stu did a ruck on Saturday for 4.2 miles, 35 pounds, Alice pack, and wore combat boots. Got bad shin splints from it. Any way to recover quickly? Yeah, just massage them. My advice too is, when you do ruck, I will be honest with you. When I power walk or walk fast, I tend to get pain in my shins. I wouldn't call them shin splints, but I get some pain. But if I shuffle, like short stride shuffle, looks like I'm running, but just a shorter stride, I don't get any pain at all. And I'm faster. So I can either walk slow, like 15, 16-minute miles, no problem. Or if I walk like power walking, like 13, 14-minute miles, I get shin pain when I do that. But if I shuffle, I don't. So I don't know if I'm weird with that, if anybody else feels that way, but I try to play around in those three paces of walking, power walking, and shuffling. And 9 times out of 10, I just wind up either walking or shuffling more because the power walk is not comfortable for me, and I'm not sure why. Maybe it's because it's a heel strike I don't think you did anything wrong. But yeah, just massage, work those ankles. You work on some ankle mobility. They're probably just tired. And something I would do too is if you can, try not to ruck on concrete. Try to go on softer ground, whether it's grass, trails, a rubberized track, or turf. I mean, that's what we do when we do or beach. Beach rucks are, though they're extremely challenging in their own right, just different. You don't have impact pain. You have my legs are dying because I can't move in the soft sand pain. But no, you didn't do anything wrong. It happens. Okay, so got a couple questions here. Nick says, Stu, do you have any opinions on foam rolling before workout in the morning or just afterwards for recovery? I'll be honest with you. Um, there's some science out there on foam rolling that isn't uh, helpful, I think. But I'll be honest with you. I have found it to be a good thing. Like I'll roll my back just to like pop it. Probably get eight pops out of that one. Feel like I'm walking straighter. Um, I'll roll my butt muscles and my hamstring connections. Roll my hamstrings a little bit. Roll my thighs. Roll my shins. And I just feel ready whenever I do that. So I treat it part of a warm up. Now, I only do it for like 3 or 4 minutes and then I actually do a warm up and then go work out. But afterwards too. Yeah, absolutely. Afterwards give it a good 5-10 minutes. Um it's helpful. Something I like to do is do like a 5-minute bike or elliptical or something like that, and then do a 5-minute foam roll, hit my legs, a little stretch, and then start running. And it's very helpful for me because I have found that if I don't do that, it takes me a good mile just to warm up. And maybe that has to do with my age. Not sure. Pretty sure it is my age because it didn't used to happen. But yeah, treat it like a warm up and a cool down. I don't think it's going to make you more flexible. I don't think it's going to increase your mobility, which some of these studies are on. Does it help you recover? Probably not, but it makes you feel better, and that's all I need. Be honest with you. Let's see. I'm about to have my second kid any day now. Congrats! Happy Father's Day, belated. You get to be a double dad. That's awesome. All right. So, other questions. Looks like, hey, Stu, doing ultra trail rucking this year and getting some sciatic pain, not debilitating. Any recommendations to prehab, post-hab? You know what? I would go to um, go to YouTube, look up some doctor of physical therapy pages, and see what they have for sciatica. Go to Instagram, search sciatica, and there'll be hundreds of videos for you to get good ideas from people who are qualified to really help you. Um, that's where I would go if I was having sciatic pain first. Over the years, I've had it a couple of times and I was able to manipulate it out. Basically, rolling my hip, big circle movements, leg swings back and forth, um, stretches like the lizard pose and pigeon pose, and something worked in that process to get that pinch from unpinching. Sometimes it can be a pinch all the way up in the spine, but it can also travel somewhere between muscles and joints and just find something that's pinching it that is aggravating it. But that's that's kind of what I would do. And like we just mentioned earlier in the previous question about foam rolling and massaging and things like that prior to running and after running, do that. It will help you. But if you really want, some good movements and stretching and strengthening exercises, check out some of those doctors of physical therapy pages. There's countless out there. I probably follow a dozen of them, at least on Instagram. And that's where I would go. All right, let's see. Questions. I'm about to have my second kid now to keep my fitness high. I was thinking of doing 100 push-ups, 100 squats, 100 sit-ups. My 3 miles, 19 minutes. I don't want to lose it. Should I stress? I mean, if you're doing that to maintain your fitness, yeah, I would do that. Because I won't lie to you. The first 4 or 5 months of having a brand new kid, as you know, is just tough. I mean, you don't even. It's amazing how little sleep you can get by on, and you really won't ever experience that until you have a newborn, that needs feeding in the middle of the night or whatever. And when they sleep through the night for the first time, it's life changing. But yeah, I mean that's a good maintenance plan. What I would do though is maybe I probably wouldn't do it every day just because joints have a way when you're not sleeping well and not eating well just to get a little tighter. You're not well recovered. So I would do like an upper body day and a lower body day. Um, and um, so do your pull-ups, your push-ups, your abs, your plank, whatever on one day, mix in some dumbbell overheads, make it an upper body day where you set a number and that's all I'm going to do today. Takes you, I don't know, 15 minutes to do. And then go for a run afterwards. Short run, maybe go for a mile, 2 miles, whatever. And then do the same thing the next day, but with legs. And you maybe go for a run for a couple of miles, 3 miles even, if you're worried about your mile time for your 3 mile run for 3 miles. But every 5 minutes, you do 20 squats. By the time you're done, you've done 100 squats and 3 miles, and you haven't even spent 30 minutes doing it. So um, that's what I would do, and I've done that a few times. It's it works. It helps you maintain for sure, and it's quick. Sometimes you don't have time to go for an hour and a half workout. Crank it out for 30 minutes, and that will sustain you until you're able to start doing more full workouts again. All right. Um, I wouldn't want to rebuild later. I try to do what you can. I mean, think of it what you're doing. If you're not going hardcore, you're basically using a short workout as a stress reliever. Now, I will say this, if you're not sleeping well, the last thing you really need is to do a high intensity workout that just physically crushes you. Now you're sleep deprived and burned out physically from just overdoing it, and that's no way to go either. So I would do something that is treated like a stress reliever. So here's what I would do. In fact, if I were to write this out for you, I would say 100 pull-ups, or no, let's say 50 pull-ups, 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups. Run 2 miles. Day 1. Day 2, squats, lunges, run 3 miles. Day 3, nothing other than a mobility day. Non-impact cardio 5 minutes, stretch and foam roll 5 minutes. Do that for 30 minutes. You're done. And then, so it's like 2 days on, 1 day off, 2 days on, 1 day off. So you would do upper body again on Thursday, lower body on Friday, mobility on Saturday. It's up to you what you want to do on Sunday. You can either start back over again on day 1, kind of like do push again, or you can take a day off and start back on Monday. But that's what I would do if, and that's a short term fix. I mean, I would say you do that for 3 or 4 months, you won't notice much of a reduction in your abilities. You'll find it therapeutic, and I think be better off for it than burning yourself out on both ends of that candle, because it can happen. Next thing you know, you're sick, which sucks. You don't want to get the baby sick. Great question though. I might have to write something about that one. That's a good one. You guys send some questions because I don't see any questions up here. Mm-hmm. Well, I tell you what, since I don't see any questions, let's go back to Nick Behringer's page. All right, and find us something to stress and eating disorders, ketogenic versus ketone supplements. Yeah, that's a tough one. Ashwagandha. Do you need it? Sports performance. That's a good one. I think I have ashwagandha over there. Understanding fatigue, new framework. That's a good one because a lot of people don't understand it. You know, it goes deeper than just I'm sleepy. It is a central nervous system fatigue that can affect everything in your entire body. How well your body functions, processes cholesterol and sugar, and fights off illness, thinks thinks creatively, thinks reactively. Fatigue can mess up all those things. That's why recovery is so important. So once again, let's see what some of his latest ones are. So I think his latest ones, whoops, where are you, Nick? Some of the latest ones are Tactical Alert, Lead Poisoning. Okay, that's a new one I have not read yet. Gonna have to check that out. So could we have lead in our some curcumin really boost brain power? Here's a good one. Pork versus plant protein, which helps military personnel recover better. So as you can see, he has a theme here that is really useful for all of us. Whether you are young, old, military, civilian. Yeah. I mean, he does some really cool stuff over here. So I highly recommend following him. In fact, you got 4,300. Let's get those numbers up. All right, Nick. That's my commercial for you. Let's see. Stu, thank you, Stu. Wrote it all on my notebook. Have a good day. Yeah, good luck, man, and enjoy. What are your thoughts on creatine? Great thing. In fact, go to Nick's program or Nick's page and you'll see a ton of great studies on it. I think probably creatine is the number one most studied supplement out there. In fact, in the 90s, when I had my first exposure to it, no one knew exactly how to use it. And I think they overused it, they underhydrated, and I saw a lot of people who overused it, didn't use it properly. They got big, but they couldn't get through a selection. They couldn't get through a 24-hour screener event that made or broke, right, their spec ops dreams. So my first exposure to it, I was running a SEAL program at the academy and probably have 50 to 100 people try out for this every class. And, a lot of athletes at the time, lacrosse players, football players, guys that are just getting big for, power lifters were on creatine. And to the person who had bilateral leg cramps, full body cramps, they had to stop. We couldn't hydrate them quick enough. We couldn't fix what their problems were, and it all came down to using creatine. Now, that was in the 90s, and it was also probably misused. I think the dosing is so much better now. The knowledge to hydrate is so much better now. I think, but my advice would be, if you're doing those kind of training programs, you probably shouldn't get on it anyway, because they've banned it from using that type of supplement for any training. That's a selection type program. So, one, don't do it for that. But what do I think of it? I think it's a great supplement that needs to be used young and old, but it needs to be used smartly. And if you're going into spec ops, I probably wouldn't even get started on it, to be honest with you, until long after your selections. And you want to do a lift cycle, get a little bigger, a little stronger. But it's not just physical too. I mean, it's having some cognitive effects too. Like, older people are able to see benefits like cognitive decline decreased, which is huge, right? Especially longevity and just quality of life later on. And they're attributing that to creatine use. So read some studies on it. It would be my advice, versus get my opinion on it, because my opinion started very negative on it. And over the last 25 years of, the research that has come out and experience in it myself, it's very useful. So there you go. Heavy metals. Should former military get checked? Your feelings? I don't know. Probably so. I mean, I think I'm going to, actually. I have a doctor's appointment this year in August. So always try to push some PRs on my blood work numbers, and I may ask for metals just in case. I'm not sure what type of detox that are available. So to clarify, is creatine use banned at buds? Yes. Can they test for it? I have no idea. But if you're using it, you're cheating. So don't do it. In fact, anything that says supplement facts on it, you cannot use at buds. Period. If it has nutrition facts on it, that's a different story. Like this, my little powder here. You guys see that? It says nutrition facts. All this is salt and sugar, pretty much. It's not considered a supplement. It's considered food, right? And I have some protein powders, which I don't have here. That are nutrition facts, because it's just pure protein, and protein is considered a food, not a supplement. So that's what's banned at buds. I'm going to graduate college in 2 years. Want to go SEAL or CCT? Should I go as an officer or enlisted? That's up to you, my man. That's up to you. Depends on what you want to do. Personally, I would say this. If you're on the fence of one or the other, you can actually do both. So you can start off as an enlisted person, finish your degree, start off as an enlisted person, and as you learn the job, you get some experience, you get some deployments under your belt. Next thing you know, you're like an E5, E6. You have a decision to make. Do I want to go chief and do that route, or do I want to start off and go officer again? And you've already seen what those officers had to do in your previous platoons or troops. And, I think one of that answers could be, can I do it better than that? One was a really good officer. I want to be just like him, or one wasn't, I don't want to be anything like that person. So you learn good and bad, and you learn what not to do, what to do. So if you're on the fence, that's where I'd say go. If you're not, you want to lead, by all means, go officer. It's a different job, but it's similar enough where you have to go through all the same training and you learn some great skills, but you also learn how to manage people and the mission and be responsible for it going poorly, because that's what happens. Do you recommend blood work? I'm 19, but always heard it's good, especially being an athlete and training a lot. Oh yeah, get some blood work done. Just see where your numbers are. I mean, you never know. You might have a deficiency somewhere, and you can fix that by eating properly or getting another hour of sleep. Could fix it. Is muscle size a negative or positive contributor to selection? Good question. Well, if you have very little muscle size, and there are some people who make it through with very little muscle on their body, they are bones and skin and just wiry. So they're just tough and they get through it. And they are crushed to the bone, with load bearing activities. Then there are bigger guys who don't have that problem getting crushed under loads, but they're slow. And it's hard for them to do obstacle courses if they're bigger and heavier. It's hard to run. It's hard to do pull ups and rope climbs if they're bigger and heavier. So I would say, as with anything, treat it kind of like the bell curve, right? Where you're too light over here, too heavy over here, chances are things are going to be more challenging. If you're somewhere in the middle, got a mid-size range, muscle size, probably going to be all right. Got a little bit of strength, fast enough for good endurance, you're solid. But if you're all muscle, you're going to have a problem. If you have no muscle, you're going to have a problem. So there you go. Sorry for the vague answer. All right, what else we got over here? Anybody? Not many over here on YouTube today. When replacing run time with non-impact biking, what intensity should it be? Good question. I would say this. If I say, let's say you miss, okay, first of all, the ratio I have set up, if you miss a mile of running, you owe 10 minutes of cardio. Now, if I say go run 4 miles, easy, that bike or whatever for 40 minutes can be an easy bike. If I say 4 mile timed, you need to put some effort into that biking. And some of those minutes in there can be minute fast, minute slow, minute fast. So you do some intervals to get going. You can also do something really challenging, especially if you're on a like a assault bike. Go for max power. And let's say if you did a 2 mile, you missed the 2 miles of your total running of that day, and so you do a 20-minute max power test. And let me tell you, that's a hard one. You are putting out on that bicycle. So it kind of depends. If it's a zone 2 type of run or nice and easy, wouldn't sweat it. If it's goal pace or sprint, you definitely want to be a little faster. Goal pace isn't considered a sprint, but it should have some effort in there, and your heart rate should be pretty high. Maybe like I don't know, zone 3, maybe 4, borderline 4. But if it's a sprint, you're zone 5, and you're going hard, like max heart rate type stuff. So good question. Good question. See what else we have over here. Referring to the shin splint question earlier, should I stay off running for a few days and do cross training, or is it okay to run? Good question. They may be a little sore, but you may find that running is okay. It was the walking that did it to you. Maybe that's how it is for me. I don't know if running hurts you, then maybe you do have some shin splints. Um, but we walk different than we run. We typically heel strike when we walk, and if you're power walking, sometimes that heel strike gets a little bit more uh, pounding, and you can feel it right up your shins and into your knees even. So my advice would be, one, if you're conservative with it, yeah, go non-impact cardio. Whatever run you had today, replace it with 10 minutes of cardio per every mile that you missed. Or you could try a warm up. Try to do some of that foam rolling stuff we mentioned. Foam roll your knees, your hips, your shins. Go for a little jog. See how a mile feels. A mile doesn't hurt. Go ahead and do your running. But if it does, stop and replace all impact cardio with biking. Sorry if you've already talked about this, but I saw the movie Warfare last night and wondered what your thoughts were on it. Showed me that you better have a never quit attitude in Spec Ops. Hell yeah. Um, I haven't seen it yet. So, but I will say I've talked to a couple of guys who've seen it and knew the op personally, and he said he nailed it. It's exactly what it was. And I was listening to DJ Shipley the other day say, just even the little things like hearing the buzzing of power lines or the flickering of lights, and all these little sounds um, that occur, when you take your headphones off and it goes quiet. It's just crazy, crazy feedback on that one. Everybody's saying he did a great job with that. Switching from active duty to guard to go to selection in 2 years Air Force, how was your experience transitioning out and training hard still? Um, good, good. I mean, I trained hard in the military. I trained hard outside the military. I think once you train and it's in your blood, you're going to train regardless of who you are or where you are, because that doesn't change. And some people get out of the habit because they can't do it themselves. So that where I see it go wrong is like for guys that were in really great shape in the military and loved group PTs and um, you know got through their training um, because they had all these group people pushing them to do it, and then when they were on their own, they had a hard time doing it. So if you haven't done any by yourself workouts, get used to it because you're going to be by yourself unless you go to a gym and take a class, and you can find classes that are kind of fun. You may have to hunt and peck a little bit, whether that's a spin class, yoga class. Sometimes they got these boot camp classes where somebody's doing push-ups and pull-ups and things like that, which are a lot of fun. You may find those enjoyable if you're more of a group training guy. But my advice is be able to do both. Do group training and do on your own training because you're going to be on your own once you get out. But at least in the guard, you still have one foot in the door, so you can have access to both and still train with and without people. Between civilians going straight to selection versus fleet returnees, where do you see the most success? Good question. I don't know. I would say this: if you've been out in the fleet and you're going back to buds, you obviously know you made a mistake the first time. And chances are you realize, yeah, that I don't want to do anything else but this. So you have kind of like the mindset of, I got no plan B, right? Because I don't want to go back. So that's a good mindset, I think. New guys sometimes are like, oh, it can't be that bad. But sometimes they know, and they know that this is the only job I want to do in the military, and there's no plan B. I think not having a plan B is really good. I think for some, and I was looking at um, some statistics recently during Hell Week, and there were a lot of E5s in there. And I was like, what? I would have thought there would have been fewer returnees that were quitting, but there were a lot. Now, I don't know if that was all classes that are like this or just this one particular class, but in that case, sometimes people can justify, like, you know what, I was doing pretty well as an E5 in that air squadron. I probably wouldn't be too bad going back right now, right? Or whatever reason why. Might have been injuries. I don't know. But, my advice is don't have a plan B. Whichever route you go, don't set yourself up with a plan B. Because I promise you, your will be tested. And what I mean by that is there's going to be a day that turns into night, and you don't know when the day is going to end. And you're sitting in the surf zone. It's cold. It's dark. It's sandy. You got sand everywhere, every orifice, and you're just thinking. You start thinking like, "Wow, this sucks. We're not even in Hell Week yet, and we got to be up at 4 in the morning. It's 11 o'clock now, so by the time we get all dried off and go, it's going to be past midnight. I got to do all these things, get ready for tomorrow." You start thinking about, wow, this night's going to really suck. And it just gets worse. And if you start thinking about that type of stuff, um, it gets worse. And, that's when your plan B starts hitting into your brain. Like, oh, you know what? Maybe fleet isn't so bad. Don't do it. You'll regret it. um, I may be getting lower limb pain and pre-signs of shin splints from running form. Any recommendations on how to assess and fix it? My advice is this: get somebody to film you running if you want to do it yourself, and just watch and compare it to really good runners. Because sometimes there'll be running diagnostic videos on YouTube you can compare your running to, and you can see what they're doing in slow motion. You can see what you're doing wrong. Start there. Other than that, go to one of those running assessment stores. Sometimes you get some good guys that can actually break down what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong. They have quite a diagnostic system in there. And usually it's to determine what shoes you're going to buy, and maybe that will help you too. So we all kind of run a little bit differently. Nobody runs the same. Because everything depends on leg length and hip mobility and all types of stuff, speed of your running. So, yeah, I would go there and see how that works. You want to send it to me? I'll look at it. I'm not a great running assessor like I am with swimming, but I know what looks funky and can tell you need to fix this. Let's see here. Is it safe to run? Sorry, meant downhill after running uphill. Says damages knees more. We usually don't run downhill unless it's a slight grade. If it's a steep grade, we'll walk down it. Like there's a hill we run once a week where it's a tough hill. It's about a quarter mile up, and if it was any longer, it would people be quitting. Right? It's hard, but it's not impossible. If that makes any sense. By the time you're at the top, you've probably reached max heart rate. And then you just kind of catch your breath walking down and then try to run up again next set. Sometimes people jog down it, but I think it's almost too steep to jog down. But if it were a slighter grade, maybe instead of not like this, but like this, probably be okay to let yourself run down the hill. It does open up your stride a little bit, and sometimes it feels good, but you tend to heel strike hard when you run downhill. So that's where it can get damaging. So you might want to shorten your stride a little bit instead of try to lengthen it and land on your heels when you do it. Otherwise, just walk down it. That's what I put it this way. At my age, I don't run down hills. All right. Somebody asked about the Warfare movie again. I have not seen it yet, but I've heard it's great and very realistic. Looks like I've answered all you guys' questions over here on Instagram. Any others over here on YouTube? So here's the deal. I appreciate you guys sticking around. There's a coupon code you can use over at stewsmithfitness.com. It's called Live15, save you 15%. If you're interested in books and ebooks, but there's a ton of free stuff over there too. Articles on running and swimming and calisthenics and weightlifting and block periodization, all types of things out there. You'll see some really good articles on topics that you need to understand, right? Research. It's a great place to do some research, especially if you're wondering, I want to go to Buds. How do I start? I have a ton of stuff over there about being a better recruit. What's it mean to be a good recruit? So, yeah, check it out. Live15 coupon code saves you 15%. So I'll let the streamer tell you that. Somebody asked last question, looks like, what's the best way to strengthen the core? Good question. I think the best way is a way or multiple ways. I think weights, deadlifts, squats will always strengthen your core. I think one arm farmer walks heavy, where you got to straighten yourself, strengthens your core well. Hanging knee ups, flutter kicks, leg levers, plank pose, bear crawls. I think they're all really good ways to strengthen the core. What's the best way? I think the best way is the one you do consistently. So mix it up. If you have a test on something, make sure you actually practice the test. You need to do other stuff too, because you just don't want to be unilateral with your core, because the core is a system. It's not just abs doing crunches and sit-ups, right? It is your hips, spine, and shoulder girdle all together, all those muscles that connect your hips and your spine and your shoulder girdle into the spine itself are part of your core. So, countless muscles in there. Maybe one day I'll count them. But there's a ton, and you need more than one exercise to work them all. So get used to working them and work them together, because don't just isolate your obliques, don't just isolate your abs. Work them together to make better power, and you'll see better results. All right, folks. I see there were a couple more questions that came in while I was giving my closing. I do need to go. I apologize. Send those questions to me by email. You can send them stew@stewsmith.com. I'll answer them personally. Send you links to articles that may answer them even better. But unfortunately, I can't get to it right now. So you guys over here on Instagram that just sent those last questions, just send me an email, stew@stewsmith.com, and I will answer it. So apologize. I do need to go. Got a busy day. I will see you tomorrow. We'll do another live Q&A with some CSS critiques. Until tomorrow, you guys have a good one.